In a bizarre coincidence, news of the tragic suicide of actor Robin Williams emerged just minutes before the end of a broadcast of a Family Guy episode which was simultaneously being aired on the BBC, in which the plot revolved around Robin Williams and a failed suicide attempt. The Independent reports Robin Williams' Family Guy episode about a suicide attempt aired on BBC Three as news of actor's death broke. In the episode, Peter Griffin is cursed with the ability to turn everything he touches into Robin Williams. Driven to madness like King Midas, the curse leads Peter to try and commit suicide. And the episode ended just minutes before news of the tragic suicide of Robin Williams' death emerged, prompting BBC viewers to remark on the chilling coincidence of the two events. The episode ended just as the news broke about his death, a BBC spokesperson said. This was a repeat that we have shown a couple of times before, so who could have planned it? It was scheduled more than 2 weeks ago, so it is just an uncanny coincidence. Some of our people who work here noticed that the death of Robin Williams was announced just as this episode ended. And before the mainstream media writes hit pieces about InfoWars claiming the Illuminati killed Robin Williams, no, that's not what I'm saying. Although a lot of people in the conspiracy community are claiming precisely that. Here's one example. I am leaning on the possibility he was taken out by the powers that be, but I can't possibly fathom why. He hasn't been relevant to the mainstream for a while unless he did something behind the scenes to piss them off, then it makes no sense. Unless he's one in a line of sacrifices during this lunar time. So of course, as we unfortunately are all too aware of, whenever somebody in Hollywood dies, the lunatics immediately come out of the woodwork and make YouTube videos about how it was an Illuminati sacrifice. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's an interesting coincidence. And in fact, going beyond that, it's intriguing to delve into what Carl Jung called synchronicity, which is defined as the experience of two or more events which occur in a meaningful manner, but which are causally unrelated. So this was the idea, which is obviously being challenged by other philosophers, of meaningful coincidence, and it basically became the underpinning for Jung's concept of archetypes and the collective unconsciousness, which is the idea that there's this governing dynamic, this energy that underpins the whole of human experience in history. So not to get too deep into it in a 4-minute YouTube video, but he basically outlined the concept that these kind of synchronicities are not necessarily planned, there's no conspiracy behind it, but it's just an energy that emanates out of the human experience, out of the collective unconscious, that causes these meaningful parallels, these meaningful coincidences, such as a Family Guy episode about Robin Williams invoking the notion of suicide being broadcast at the same time as his actual suicide to possibly happen. Which of course is challenged by apophenia, which is this concept of humans seeing patterns or connections in everything in random or meaningless data, and then claiming that it is a meaningful coincidence or a meaningful synchronicity. And this kind of coincidence has happened with Family Guy before. Remember last year, after the Boston bombings, an episode emerged of Family Guy which had been broadcast just before the Boston Marathon attack, which showed people being killed at the Boston Marathon. So we've seen this kind of synchronicity with something as abstract as a Family Guy episode beforehand. So again, it's interesting that this episode was being broadcast minutes before the actual suicide of Robin Williams. And again, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory and that they had prior knowledge of his suicide and that it was an Illuminati assassination, blood sacrifice. No, the people who say that are silly lunatics. The point I'm making is it's interesting whether these kind of coincidences are meaningful coincidences, are kind of synchronicities that emerge from the collective unconscious, from some kind of underpinning energy which guides the universe, or if they're just meaningless coincidences that have no connection whatsoever. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is Paul Joseph Watson for Infowars.com.